There are only two purposes for giving feedback, claims author Sherry Harley of the book How to Say Anything to Anyone. So what do you think those two purposes are for giving feedback? If you answered for improvement of behavior, or secondly, reinforcement of behavior, then you answered correctly. Feedback is an essential component of effective change. Within the workplace, change is constant. Seeking feedback, receiving feedback, giving feedback. Most importantly is giving feedback. It is one of the most effective tools that we have for harnessing and promoting change. Feedback is the cheapest, most powerful, yet most underused management tool that we have at our disposal. It helps people get on track and serves as a guide to assist people to know how they are and how others are perceiving their performance. Hi, my name is Candace Bucheister, and I'm a part of Vituity's Leadership and Development team. I asked Rebecca Burgess, Vituity's Director of Business Integration and Knowledge Management, about giving feedback, one of 3 topics we're offering in the Intentional Conversation series. I first asked Rebecca, why is giving feedback so difficult?
Giving feedback is hard for 2 reasons. First, to do it right takes thought and work and preparation. And secondly, that whole ingrained idea that we have about critical feedback not being nice. And that, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. We tend to sometimes take that approach. But what's truly not nice is allowing someone to do something poorly without letting them know. I've had a horrible experience of just wanting to avoid giving critical feedback because it was hard feedback for me to give. It was an employee who was too unpolished in some professional settings. This was hard feedback for me to give because it felt so much like it was coming very close to criticizing this employee's personality. It felt unnice. Also, I'm very casual 90% of the time, and I thought I'd be challenged for giving this particular feedback. So I ended up avoiding it. And my solution, which I wasn't even really fully aware of, was to keep this employee from those higher stakes meetings. It took me a while to kind of connect the dots and realize I was actually potentially damaging their career by not giving them the feedback they needed and having this discussion. So withholding the feedback was not only not nice, it was potentially harmful. And even positive feedback is hard to give because for it to be meaningful and useful, we have to take the time to craft it.
Even positive feedback is hard to give because for it to be meaningful and useful, we have to take time to craft it. Rebecca is going to give us an example of how feedback is normally given and how we can make it even better.
One example is saying, "Good job," or "I really liked that." I'm guilty of this, so I'm working on it. But for positive feedback to be sticky and to be something that the person remembers and what does more of, you need to take time and be specific and tie that feedback to the outcome. That can make it much more meaningful, and it gives somebody something specific and actionable that they can do again, maybe spread to others. Instead of saying something like, "Good job on that handoff. Try out the way you always introduce me as your good friend and highly qualified colleague, Dr. B, in the patient handoff makes me feel prepared, and I think makes the patients feel like they're being cared for by a real team. I'd love to have you talk about this at our next meeting." Instead of, "Good job on that presentation. Try out your open body language and eye contact during the Q&A section of the presentation helped to create a good environment for discussion. I felt like you were really interested in each questioner. I'm going to copy that for my next presentation." No matter what, all feedback should be given in a timely fashion. Give it as close to the behavior you've identified as possible. Given in a safe environment, just you and the person. Ask first if it's okay to give feedback at this time. Be clear if you've got critical feedback especially, but both ways. Nobody wants to spend hours getting feedback. And be specific. What is the exact thing that was good? Be non-judgmental. You're not talking about the whole person, just a specific behavior. And actionable, something that the person you're giving feedback to can either do more of or stop doing. I just try to remember, just take a few moments, think through what I'm going to say before I say it, what would be the most truly helpful.
We all have moments where we have to deliver difficult feedback. Wouldn't it be helpful to have a formula to go by? Rebecca's going to share with us the steps to this formula.
So here's an 8-step formula. Let's use it. Let's use it with a real example. So you have somebody who's texting during times with patients. Step 1, introduce the conversation. Let's talk when you have 2 minutes. Or I like to say sometimes, let people know it's going to be a feedback conversation and say, I have some feedback for you. Let me know when you're ready. Do this in a private place and away from everybody else. So that's important. It's important to let them know you want to have a talk, let them have control about when they do it, and let them know it's going to be a short conversation. Step 2 is to state the motive. And this has to be authentic. It has to come from your heart about why you're bringing this up to them, because you care about them, what it means to them for their career. And so you can say, I care about you and I care about your career, and I know how much you care about our patients. Step 3 is to state the specific behavior. I've noticed that you've been texting while around patients. It's really good to start this with, I've noticed, or I notice. This is something that just kind of helps to be a little less tacky, and it's about your perceptions. Then the next is to state the impact of the behavior. We're in an environment where customer service and paying attention to patients, if they were our own parents, is very important to us. The texting makes patients feel ignored and unimportant. And step 5 is to state a suggestion or a request. This part needs to be clear. So I'm asking you to not have your phone out when around patients. Step 6 is to ask them for their thoughts on this situation. What are your thoughts? What are you thinking? And then wait and let them talk. In step 7, you can build an agreement together. When I see this getting better, I'm going to say something. If I don't see it getting better, I'm going to say something. And I want you to let me know how you see it going, if you're noticing any difference in your practice. Step 8 is to thank them for having the conversation and acknowledge that it's difficult. Thanks for having this conversation with me. I know it's awkward. Good feedback should only take about 2 minutes. It takes longer to craft it, making sure you know what you're going to say. Go in, be prepared, be clear, be present, be open, and then end it. Give feedback early and often, and give more specific, thoughtful, positive feedback than you give critical feedback.
Now it's up to you to take the next steps. Take notice of how often you give feedback. How do you prepare? Ask yourself, are you giving feedback often? Are you giving feedback that is impactful? Don't forget, practices that advance and grow and make a difference have 2 commonalities: communication and courage. Thank you for listening.